Is I'm a guild receptionist but I'll solo any boss to check out on time worth your time? Join me and find out. Hello and welcome to That Light Novel Guy. That's right, I am once again back with another light novel, and this one is a title that seems too silly to be good. But is it good? Well, today we are going to look at I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time. Now, before we start, I have a question for you guys. Do you guys like doing overtime? A lot of overtime? If the answer is yes, then you may not have much of an affinity with our main character Alina here, because our main character Alina is somebody who doesn't like doing overtime, but is in a situation where she has to do a lot. Now, this story is about Alina Clover, and she has decided to become a receptionist at a guild. So you know the whole shebang if you've seen just about any light novel, isekai, fantasy title. A guild lady is somebody who basically helps run the guild. If you see on a poster, oh, wanted, go into dungeon and kill X amount of monsters, you are most likely going to go to the guild receptionist to report in or pick up a quest. And that's essentially her job. Now, she's picked that because that is, well, a desk job is something a little bit more secure. This one actually goes well into the idea of, well, dungeons not being entirely safe. Now, we've seen this multiple times in other series. They enter a dungeon, whatever is overpowered goes up and kills them, or they end up with some kind of lost limb or what have you. She realises that that's not something really safe, and so decides she's going to stay in a more safer job. However, her guild is near a dungeon that is extremely popular, and she constantly has people coming in and out all day, picking up and reporting, well, quests. So that means she's got so much overtime on her hands, and she doesn't want to do overtime. She wants to do her 9-to-5 job and then relax in the comfort of her own home that she's managed to save up with her guild money and be more comfortable. So, with all of this overtime, with this hugely popular dungeon, what's Alina gonna do? Well, she's gonna go out and solo the dungeon, because in an ironic twist of fate, well, it would have been if this wasn't a light novel, she's actually secretly stupidly overpowered and can pretty much solo dungeons on her own. But while I'm not a fan of overpowered characters, this one did really feel more genuine. I mean, she's not flaunting it, she's doing it as a means to an end. She's overpowered, but she wants to just live the quiet, simple, relaxing life, because while she's overpowered, she can still get injured, she can still lose a limb, she could still potentially die on a quest. Guild receptionist is a lot more safer. So when it comes to characters, our main one is Alina, and honestly, if you've ever worked a 9-to-5 job that is customer facing, you are gonna have some kind of bond with this girl, because she, much like everybody else, is absolutely sick of silly customers, or customers that have just demands that are unreasonable, or just doesn't want to do overtime. Fair enough. And yeah, I really found this character interesting. I liked her style. I liked the fact that she was trying just to have a relaxing life. She does have a genuine reason to. At the end of the day, not wanting to be hurt, not wanting to be injured, not wanting to die is something that's very basic, but it is a good enough motivation to not do it, even though she does go back into the dungeons anyway. It kind of is interesting how the fact that she'll go into a dungeon by herself and one-shot the boss or whatever and that's kind of more important than her just actually genuinely being safe and doing overtime though. Yeah, interesting. Now we do have a few other characters, including this chap here who's on the cover, and most of them tend to be either customers, fellow employees, or another, well, team, a team, what do you call them, a party. That's right, one of the best parties in the world has realised that there is this overpowered girl or mysterious character taking out all of the bosses, and they're going to find out who it is and drag them back into their party so they can just, well, they can make things a little bit more safer. And yeah, we do have a lot of back and forth between Alina and some of these characters where they try to manipulate her into getting into this whole party thing, because she's found out actually quite quickly in this, surprisingly. And it was one of those things where while the main core of the story kind of started to pull away and she did join a party very, very quickly, it's temporarily, and she kind of ends up back in it. Now, like I said, she does have a genuine reason for not wanting to be in a party, not wanting to be in a dungeon, and that is, well, something a little bit more traumatic. I'm not going to get too much into it, but it is a genuine reason, and you can kind of see on the back of that flashback why she thinks the way she does. It is pretty good. Now, surprisingly, with this title, it is good. This is one of those titles I just thought, it sounds silly, it's not going to be anything particularly great. It's just going to be one of these titles where, you know what, you'll read it and you'll just kind of forget about it. But I was really surprised by it. It is a genuine, underrated gem. It's one that, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you are somebody who's maybe a teenager in school who's not really particularly fussed, or you're one of these workaholics who kind of does continuously doing overwork, you're probably not going to have the same affinity for this. But for me, somebody who doesn't really want to do overtime but begrudgingly accepts I have to do it from time to time, this was very relatable. I mean, at the end of the day, what lengths would you go to not do overtime and have a comfortable life working 9 till 5? Ask yourself that, and if you think that you would try and solo a dungeon on your own and being overpowered while doing so, then you might have a little bit more of an affinity with this. One thing I did like about this is that it was quite funny. Hit and miss for me is comedy. I love a lot of comedy manga, I love a lot of comedy anime, I love a lot of British comedies, but when it comes to light novels, comedy is very hit and miss because a lot of it tends to just being about overpowered. Oh, he's overpowered, so that's funny. Yeah, it was funny the first few times, but not always. But this one does have quite a few laughs. There was a few times where I did actually laugh out loud, which, you know what, I'm going to see it. If it's something that makes me do that, then all the more power to it. Another thing I was appreciative of was the fights. A lot of the fights are genuinely good. The author does know how to write a good fight scene, which is somewhat rare in light novels, surprisingly. While we do get a lot of fights in light novels, a lot of them tend to be genuinely just that, just kind of one-shotting or a little bit of a build-up to 2 pages or something of fights. But no, this one's quite up there when it comes to fights. There is a lot of very intense situations and good written fights that I was quite surprised worked as well as they did. So, Guild Receptionist, is it worth your time? Well, in my opinion, if you are somebody a little bit older and you have the daily work grind, you might appreciate this a little bit more. Personally, for me, it's one that I am going to plan on getting volume 2 with. And I think that is pretty big accolade when it comes to a lot of light novels, because I read so many series that I read one volume and never go back to it. Is it the best thing out there? No, it's not. Once it kind of removes itself from the whole being the guild receptionist and she's going out and being in a party and such, it does lose a little bit of its spark. And it's also one that I wasn't sure if could manage to hold up for more than one volume. It does seem like it is going to be that, but I am a little bit cautious. I kind of feel like if it's only going to last a few volumes before it starts getting a little bit repetitive, or what have you, but I'm quite interested to see how this one turns out. It was rather surprising at how good it was and how funny it was, and I did really enjoy my time. Now, I do have to be honest here and point out that Yen Press did send me a review copy of this one, so this is an honest to God review. I genuinely did enjoy it because, as has been pointed out, if I don't like a series, I am more than happy to rip it a new one. Guild Receptionist is one that's worth trying out. If you are somebody who doesn't like the 9 to 5 grind, if you don't want to do overtime, if you just want to have a nice relaxing life reading light novels, this one might be up your alley. It is, surprisingly, a hidden gem so far. At least that's my opinion. What do you guys think of this title? Have you read it? Let me know in the comments, and if you do like this, remember to leave a like and consider subscribing. I'll see you on the next page. Goodbye.